Welcome everyone to another live session, Oscar from StressFit. Thank you guys for tuning in to this live session. Today we're here to discuss chapter 7 of Mooji, Vaster Than Sky, Greater Than Space, and another powerful chapter. So we'll go through some insights learned from the chapter, and there's also a nice little meditation in this chapter we will do. But before we get started, let's do 20 big breaths just to kind of come into alignment with the present moment. Any style, any way you want. I'm just going to be using the balloon breathing, but just any tempo of breathing. We're just going to do it 20 times, or you can just follow my lead. So once we do the 20 breaths, we'll just take a mindful moment just to kind of feel the body and center our attention in our presence, and then we'll get started. So we'll start our 20 deep breaths in 3, 2, and 1. And after the last breath, just taking a mindful moment just to feel the energy and presence inside the body. And when you're ready, gently opening your eyes. Okay, welcome everyone. It's always nice to welcome Lisa, welcome Debbie, welcome Sana. Good morning to you, Tanya. Welcome, Stefan. Welcome. And I apologize. The other day, I totally missed out on a live. I thought I had it on another time. And I just got my timing wrong. So I didn't even turn up. And I think it got cancelled after 15 minutes. An Insight Timer sent me an email. So I apologize to anyone that tuned in for that live that I couldn't make it. Welcome, Fanaz. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, guys, we'll get straight into it. So on page 135, one day I was going to satsang and I asked a friend to wait for me so we could drive together. We each have our own motorbikes and usually we don't concern ourselves about whether we drive together or not. But on that day, after asking her to stay, it just so happened that my motorbike wouldn't start. So because I had felt to ask her to wait, I was able to ride with her. Otherwise, I would have been late for satsang. Then she said, "Oh, Mooji, you know everything." "I don't know anything at all," I said. "Things work out because there is a cosmic mind that is working like this. You must trust it, and gradually you begin to let go of the reins of the mental control and leave the driving to the cosmic mind." So this whole chapter is all about falling into the natural sacred expression of life, and it's actually a very interesting chapter. And there's been a few insights that I've read that really hit home. So really excited to share that with you guys. And we go down into your life is a discovery. Not only does the discovery of one's true nature do away with problems, but it also does away with the one who seems to have problems. This is a very powerful point in your search for truth. If you strongly identify as your personality, then this way of looking will just frustrate you. You may say, "What are you talking about? You are not even trying to address my problem." I am not addressing your problem because both you and the problem are unreal. The actual problem is the false identification as a person. You are pure consciousness, pure awareness, even when you are not aware of this. It is good news that it is not necessary to remove all the apparent problems or blockages that the person experiences in order for you to realize your true nature. For one thing, if you remove one blockage, it is like that another blockage will come to take place. But most importantly, this idea that you have to manage your existence is still rooted in the false notion that truth is the result of stabilizing the experiential realm. Only when we snap out of the conviction of personhood, which can happen in an instant, will our seeing arise from a higher altitude, from a place of awareness. We can see that a problem only exists for us when we accept as fact the false idea we have of ourselves as as merely being a person. And I'll read that again. It's very insightful. We can see that a problem only exists for us when we accept as fact the false idea we have of ourselves as being merely a person. And this reminds me of a conversation I had the other day with someone, and they're talking about their childhood trauma. First, it started off that they were a very anxious person, and by nature they felt anxiety, and I was trying to, my response was, well, anxiety can be looked upon as just, unsettled energy in the body, and when we keep the body safe and the nervous system calm, it can be a great solution to discharge our anxious energy. And then the person turned around and said, "Well, no, like, not that she disagreed." She goes, "Yes," but she said, "My anxiety comes from my childhood, and it's not that easy to just, look at it that way, because when I went through childhood, this happened, that happened, and all these traumatic experiences has made me unsettled." And my response was, "I'm sure it's justified, and I'm sure in your mind that is justified, and there's a million reasons why you feel anxious, and that's okay, because there's good reasoning for it. But purely on a level of health and presence, there is a narrative. The narrative, the story you're telling yourself is keeping the anxiety alive, right? It's the story." Now, that's really hard to digest, because we struggle to let go of the story because it becomes our truth. It becomes who we are. And the ego loves to identify with that because it gives some sort of reasoning why we feel the way we feel. And I think a lot of mental and physical issues stem from the story we tell ourselves. And again, that story can be justified, and it may have reasoning, but if you truly inquire and you look from a higher state of awareness, there is actually no one there to suffer. Even the story is witnessed through pure observation. You are always in this pure state of awareness. It's just whether you expose your attention to this boundless state, whether you have the patience, the space, and the silence, and the spiritual maturity in one perspective to really connect with the ether. And when you start to really look and observe, the story is observed, the anxiety is observed, everything is observed. So you cannot be what you observe. But you got to go beyond the intellectual understanding. You got to really feel it. Because once you start to feel it, it starts to become a practical experience. And you then truly start to blossom, I believe, on an energetic level, because you're no longer thought identification, feeling identification, story identified. You're now just observing everything from a higher state of consciousness. Moving along, only when we snap out of the conviction of personhood, which can happen in an instant. I've just read that. Now, coming down the page on page 136, once the consciousness falls in love with the person identity, It will only give it up when that identification is felt to be unbearable. As long as it is stuck in a state of personhood, it will invest a lot of energy addressing issues related to the personal life, with every little energy left over for everything else, with very little energy left over from everything else because it's exhausting. For some time, this personalized consciousness cannot see that there is anything else, just me and my life and my family and my story and my history and my trauma and my friends, and that's it. But the parameters of personal consciousness are very claustrophobic and limited. So eventually, one has to emerge into a wider field of seeing and being. And this really complements what I've just said, because when we're in a state of personhood, your story is very real. The story you've gone through, your personal history, and the more you're invested in that, the more it becomes your truth because it's who you are, right? This is my story. This is what I've gone through. It's real. And it's so real because you've got a lot of energy invested in it. And yet, again, I'm sure it's justified and it happened because it couldn't have happened any other way. But as you go deeper into self inquiry, to really inquire about the self and the truth of your essence, you move from personhood to presence. And we hear this a lot in this book. Mooji talks about the shift from personhood to presence. And in this state of presence, that story is observed. So you cannot be what you observe. So that identification with the story, and this is where creative thinking, people that are really creative with their thinking, and they can really go into the mind and go, okay, well, this story is giving me anxiety. I'll just change the narrative. I went through this process for me to become a stronger, wiser person. It couldn't have happened any other way because it happened the way it happened. And now I am present. I am liberated from the past and I am excited about the future. Whatever that, like, once you start getting creative with your story, you can change, you can reprogram your brain to start looking at things differently. When you start looking at things differently, life starts to change. Not only does that influence your health and well being, your life will start to change. Things start to change when you start to change, right? And sometimes these stories haunt us. And, I know that people have gone through some traumatic, horrible, horrific things, and it's very difficult and challenging to change that narrative. But if it's creating you, uneasiness, dis-ease, when there's no easiness in the body, we really have to think what's important here. Is our health important, or is holding on to that story that's creating this uneasiness important? And some people may not agree with me, and some people might have a different perspective. But just on my personal experience, I do believe that sometimes changing the narrative, changing the story, changing you not necessarily change the story, but the way you perceive that story, understanding that there is a greater sense of awareness and consciousness that is your true self, that is beyond all physical experiences, that is beyond all feelings, that is beyond all emotions, that is beyond all thinking, that is beyond everything we experience in this 3D reality. Um, so again, it says here, for some time, this personalized consciousness, because it becomes so personalized, because it's me, my story, this is what I've gone through. This personalized consciousness cannot see that there is anything else because we're confined. 5 minutes of trauma shouldn't change 30, 40 years of your life, but it is that way. That's what happens. We go through something traumatic, we hold on to it, and then it shapes and molds our perspective for the rest of our life because it goes back to the stress response. Bringing it back into a physical experience. Evolution's equipped us with this amazing response, a defense mechanism, so we can sense danger. But when we go through something traumatic, we start looking for like danger around every corner. We're on edge and we feel anxious because the body feels that something's going to jump out and attack it, right? Because like how our physiological responses haven't really adapted with modern day lifestyles. Our flight or flight response hasn't adapted. It still believes we're living in the jungle and we're trying to survive. So something that you're romancing mentally about the past, that's giving you stress, is no difference from a pack of wolves chasing you down the street, you're still kind of triggering up this, it's the same stress response. So when we personalize our consciousness to our story, you got to really, if you're serious about your health and well-being, and it all comes back to how serious are you about your health, you'll start to understand quickly that it serves you no purpose holding on to a story that is creating this uneasiness in your body, because at the end of the day, you don't you want health. Everyone wants health on some level. Like, everyone wants to be healthy and live for as long as they can, and create and have good energy running through their body. But we don't want to do the things that will help us cultivate that state. And getting personal and taking things so personally, and this is a massive transition, because letting go of the story is big. It's massive. Some people can't do it. I had a client once a long time ago, and she was traumatized by her mother. Her mother had put her through so much BS and always told her she wasn't good enough, and she just traumatized this girl, the little girl inside. This lady was in her late 40s, but she couldn't forgive her mother. She just had all this hate and resentment, and she just had a lot of bad energy. And I try to put it to her like, yes, the story is justified. There's 1,000 reasons why your mother wasn't a good parent to you. And you can keep telling yourself that story and keep feeding yourself the anxiety and the resentment and the hate and the anger towards her. Who's losing at the end of the day? Your kids aren't getting the best version of yourself. Your partner, life, the people that come into your space, and especially your body. You're just giving your body this anxiety. But no matter what I said, and no matter what perspective I offered her, she couldn't adopt that. She just was not ready to forgive her mother and forgive herself, like Polly is saying. And that's right, Ava. What it does, it creates a lot of adrenaline and cortisol in the body, and these stress hormones, that they start to accumulate and create this really, emergency state in the body. And we're just not meant to survive for that long in emergency, right? It's like a car going at full speed all day, every day. How long, how long is it going to go until it starts to break down? So some people aren't ready, but that's okay, because everyone's on their own individual journey. And if you're not ready, you're not ready. But you have to get creative. You have to understand what's more important, your health or the story. Your problems were not actually real to begin with, at least not in the way you had imagined. If your problems were real, they would be the problems for everyone, not just for you. But in fact, they appear real only in your mind. In fact, they appear real only in your mind. Who conceives them? Because you are conceiving your own problems. What may arise as a problem or worry for you is nothing at all to someone else. In turn, their problems would not bother you. When you start to see your problems from a point of view of consciousness, you're in a completely new realm. And then when we perceive when and then what was previously felt to be difficult is now perceived as nothing at all. And again, this goes into cultivating that state of awareness. Are looking at our, when we look within from a pure state of consciousness, there is no one suffering. It's all energy moving through the body that is attached to a narrative. That's it. It's only real in your mind. It's not real out there. And memory is very creative. The way you look at something now is going to be completely different to the way you look at something in 2 years' time. And it's very evident in relationships. When you have a fight with someone and it's fresh, you hate that person. But once you make up with them, you're telling a different narrative to people, like, oh, no, it was my fault. It goes from, I hate this person, it's their fault, I don't want to see that person, to then, well, actually it was my fault that they act like, you change the narrative because you've made up with that person. You know what I mean? Because memory is creative. The way you look at something now could be completely different to the way you look at it in the future. And sometimes when you go through certain experiences, you don't realize in the moment why, but 2 years, 1 year, in some point in the future, it's like, that's why I went through that. Your intuition always has your back, and what doesn't make sense now in the future, though there might be a really good reason why you went through that, you know. And sometimes we just gotta drop in and allow the sacred expression of life, the universal flow, just to move through us without kind of attaching and identifying and constricting the flow of life. As you deepen in understanding, you will still find that you face challenges as you move about in this world. It is not that you awaken and then your dynamic life is perfect. No, somehow there is still a maturing in your dynamic experience or expression. But the backdrop of this maturing is now the effortless perfection of unchanging awareness. You still will be addressing life and you will be continuing refining your discernment and verifying your understanding. The part of life and it's still there. That's part of life and it's still there. A deepening continues to take place. Superficially, there may also be some play left over from old conditioning, but it's not enough to overwhelm or suffocate you. Very little energy is going to that now. Uh, Sri Nisragata Maharaj says, I allow my human nature to unfold according to its destiny. I remain as I am. It is a very beautiful attitude towards life. There is a life that belongs to our human expression that seems to just unfold. And there is no reason to there is no reason to overly be concerned with it. You can follow the drama and karmas that play out, but you remain as the witnessing principle, and something will naturally respond appropriately in the moment. Upon waking up this morning, no one knew how his or her life was going to be expressed today. Rather, we discover it. Yesterday, you may have thought about today, but has it come exactly the way you predicted? And this is what we find throughout these pages is that life is happening. Like we don't have like it's not my life. Life is happening through me, right? And when we over intellectualize about every single choice and decision and psychoanalyze every single action and everything that's happening to us, we're not going with the flow of life. If anything, we're spending too much energy overwhelming the body with all these different choices. But even in the Tao Te Ching, they teach to fall into emptiness, that there is a certain flow of life. Decisions are felt. You don't need to make them. And this is a big one. Decisions are felt. If you just sit there silently, a decision will be felt. But for some of us, we sit there, we analyze, we're indecisive, we think about everything, and it's just the mind thinking, 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 and then we become very problematic. But if you kind of just retreat and you're silent enough and you just kind of, cultivate this state of presence, life will move. It'll unfold in front of you. And this is something that I'm teaching myself now because it's a tough one to really let go and surrender to the flow of life and just be there in your, be there as decisions surface, instead of trying to make every single choice. Your life is a discovery rather than something being made up, scripted, or controlled by you. Because you because you are consciousness, like you are the observer, you are the witness to all the phenomena, form, and content that is manifesting before your very experience as infinite awareness. It's like planning to say something to people that you have not met. Okay, let me just go up a bit. You didn't need to know what to do because things are simply arising and unfolding of their own accord. Things are simply arising and following their own accord. People sit around and talk about what they're going to do. But then when the time comes, they really don't know what to do because they are out of synchronicity with their own natural expression. It's like planning to say something to someone you haven't even met. Then when you are in front of them, there is a vibration present that you are out of synchronicity with, and your carefully prepared words are dead in front of a living power. This is the nature of being caught up in the story or identity. We're not conversant with life. We are living in the past or the future. And this is why some of the greatest teachers, philosophers, and just leaders, they're not premeditated. They just kind of come up on stage, and a force just moves through them. And I think I read, I was watching Wayne Dyer once, and that's what Wayne Dyer said. He goes, he doesn't plan his sessions. He just comes, shows up, and and a force just moves through him. I can relate. None of my sessions are really premeditated. I'll write a couple of notes, but if I try to premeditate, I'm too robotic. Like I'm like very scripted, and people feel that. But half the time when I do these lives, I don't know what will manifest, but I just kind of turn up, and I'll allow the beauty of this session to kind of unfold as it will. And there's always this force that will move through us, and I think that's just dropping into the power of the soul. The soul will dance. You just got to be open and allow it to move through you. It's like when you dance. Like you don't want to think of every single dance move you're going to be doing on the dance floor. You just listen to the music, and your body will just move the way it moves. And there's this flow. There's this force that moves through you. This is the nature of being caught up in our story or identity. I just read that. Life doesn't need this type of planning. Some planning is needed for practical matters, of course, but the practical mind doesn't carry a psychological odor. What causes trouble for people are the compulsive psychological thoughts arising in the mind. How should I be? What do other people think about me? Did I make the right decision? The one who doesn't engage with such thoughts is self centered in the proper way, not in the psychological way. This one is centered in their own heart. And so life is much fresher, more spontaneous, and intuitive. Life is meant to be like this, but this doesn't mean that you are wild. You are a free being, not a wild being. And reading this, hit an emotional chord within my own being, that how often do we sit there and dwell? We dwell about the past. We dwell about our current circumstances. We start overthinking about where we want to be, and we're not where we want to be, and what's going to happen in the future. And we're projecting into the future. We're romancing our past, and we're creating all these perspectives. That's inducing this anxious state on experiences that haven't even happened yet. So the mind is just like this pendulum going left, right, past, future, and it just really scatters your energy. But sometimes maybe it's wise to bring it all in, and just breathe and just feel the next decision. Feel it. Don't, you know, don't give it any attention what you're going to do next. Just feel it. I mean, not all the time, because sometimes we have to obviously channel our attention in a very, structured way, so we can obviously go to work and do what we need to do. But there are moments where we can just bring all that scattered energy in and discover our next choice. And this is what it feels. This is what it is. I believe what Mooji is highlighting when it comes to living in alignment with your truth, allowing life to move through you without always trying to control things, because some of us are control freaks and we just want to control every single decision. But there's this force, just let it move through you and fall into it, and allow the experience to draw you into it, without showing any resistance, identification, interpretations, judgments, expectations. All this just creates more energy to just go out, and go out. And that's why maybe some of us are depleted of energy, because we're thinking all the time, thinking, and it's exhausting. Thinking takes a lot of energy, right? It takes a lot of energy. And I've said this before, when you can really channel your thoughts into your body, into your heart center, and just breathe, and not in your meditation practice. Don't, like, this is, if you always just focus on, oh, okay, I'm going to meditate 20 minutes a day, and it's not as powerful as if you cultivate a meditative state throughout the whole day. Obviously, that's very challenging for most of us, but whenever you can throughout the day, just to be in a meditative state. Feel your hands as you're driving. And when you're in traffic, feel your body, feel the sensations, of the seat on your body. Feel the space between each breath. And next time you're listening to someone talk, really like listen to every single word without trying to, and this is a big one for me at times, without trying to say what you need to say. And I was really bad when I was younger. I just always had this anxious energy to, I got excited too quick to talk. And I've learned to just maybe just listen and allow them to talk and pause, process, then respond. This is really helping your nervous system too, because you're learning how to control your energy, you're learning how to take control over your nervous system, and you're practicing the pause. Because some people don't even listen; they just want to say what they need to say. Have you met someone like that? Like, you'll tell them something, but they're not even listening to what you're saying. You just like, they just want to tell you what they need to tell you. Um, okay, moving along. So now we go to page 141. Once you discover your completeness as unchanging awareness, the sense of fulfillment will be greater than you will possibly be able to express, and you will be in a state of presence when you are alone, as well as when you interact with others or the world. You'll no longer feel that when you do something, somebody must say thank you. Instead, people will come and say thank you, and you won't even know what for. Be in the world, but not of it. So, this again goes into everything that we've just been highlighting, just to allow yourself to discover the choice. The attitude of gratitude, even toward the seemingly bad things, is conducive to a healthy way of life. The events we call bad may stimulate the most profound growth because they help us see through the murky waters of our deluded thinking so that we may dive more deeply into ourselves. And this is just highlighting that if you're going through some shitty experiences, sometimes these experiences offer the most growth. And instead of dwelling and maybe even victimizing yourself as, being the victim and falling into this state of suffering, just to sit with it, breathe into it, and be open to the growth that is going to come from this experience. When you want truth and worldly success, one person could have everything in the world and yet not be bound by anything, and another could be a monk living in the forest but be completely attached to his begging bowl. If there is a strong sense of identity constantly hankering for something, then you will always deny, avoid, or condemn whatever gets in the way of the fulfillment of your desire. You will always be postponing the discovery of truth, and this postponement, this this postponement will create a strong sense of duality in you. And if you retain, maintain, and sustain this duality, then you are not going to be available for the self. The self may experience desires on a very superficial level, but as long as those desires matters so much to you, you will not be open to freedom. If you could be the architect of your ideal life, it would not compare to that life that is unfolding naturally as perceived in the pure heart. Now, don't get me wrong, you may do fantastically well on all fronts. On all fronts, why not? Realizing the self does not cancel out an amazing life, whatever that may be for you. And if you feel strongly to go out and get objects of your projection, imagination, or desire, I would not advise you to suppress that urge. We always have these contradictory forces working inside of us. Something has drawn you inside of us. Something has drawn you to self discovery. I'm not ready to be that good. I want to have fun and do all these exciting things in my life. A certain resistance may come forward and project all kinds of negative images around the search for truth. That is an overly disciplined way to live. That it is joyless, and that is only for people who are miserable. Quite the opposite is true. I don't think that anyone enjoys their own existence more than a sage. Such one emanates in enough joy to fill the whole world. You can do all the partying you want, but you will not be able to enjoy life the way your sagely nature can. Not just enjoying objects, but also enjoying yourself. There is no addiction or attachment involved in enjoyment. Rather, you cannot not enjoy. Sometimes I say too much joy, too much love, too much happiness, too much peace and harmony Who says something like that in everyday worldly human experiences? As long as we have a body, we cannot avoid experiencing. Last night I went to bed at 3 a.m. after watching a movie and some funny videos on YouTube. Does enjoying such recreational activities stop or sidetrack me from being who I truly am? Not at all. Everything is occurring naturally. I want to dispel the fear that you are going to become a stone Buddha. I am not living I am a living being who moves about, but I am not preoccupied with what I'm going to do tomorrow. Even if you're the type of person who always has tomorrow and next week tightly scheduled, I have nothing to criticize you for in your passions of life. Neither would I encourage you to try to suppress this energy that arises in you. But I would ask you to be open to going deeper, to pay attention to a place inside that is the source of life itself. You will not lose anything significant in doing so except delusions. So put aside the erroneous idea that discovering your own self means that your life will no longer be rich, full, and deep. So I guess Mooji here is highlighting that some people they may have the assumption that when they discover this state of presence and truth, that they have to now detach from, you know, maybe drinking a couple of nights of wine, drinking with their friends some wine, going out, having brunch, doing all these nice things. And it's like, well, I don't want to, I'm not ready to give all that up to kind of live this sage lifestyle. And that is not the truth. The truth is you don't have to give up any of your urges. You can go out there and live exactly the way you're living, but can be connected to a deeper source when you're living your life. Allow these decisions to arise and surface and feel it through your heart, but do not deny any urges that you have in living your life. Just be open and take the time to inquire deeper, to go within deeper, because Muji believes that when you truly find the sage within, what you will discover, it will transcend all worldly pleasures. But that is not to say you're going to give up worldly pleasures. It just means you're going to be connected to a deeper truth. Ava says we live the conditioned life to be more self-fulfilled. Absolutely. Conditioning just leads to, self-fulfillment. It's this perpetuating truth that is based on deterministic programs. And if we're not aware enough, we may struggle to break these feedback loops that govern our lives, moods, and behaviors, attitudes, projections that kind of just play out in this subconscious way. And, through self discovery, self inquiry, self awareness, we start to recognize the seat of the self. And when we drop into that and we tune into that, we can allow life to unfold. And it's a more peaceful way to live. Even if you just practice it in moments of your life when things are just a little bit too much, just drop into it and just allow. Don't resist. Do not resist. Resistance creates suffocation, creates anxiety, creates pressure, and that creates stress. Although freedom is not a matter of making great sacrifices, it is the truth that some key junctures in life you may have to prioritize. As I often say, freedom is free, but it's not cheap. Through self inquiry, you have a way to expose the voice inside that still says, I want this truth thing, but I also really, really want success thing too. I'm listening to this voice. You put freedom and success in the same category. It's almost as if they were equal. But this success is only the ego identity, which will continue to send up new desires because it knows you and knows what you like. If you lend your desires such importance, then of course your attention will fly to them. You will experience a sense of agitation of being divided, and the fear of losing what you have worked so hard to get. All these disturbances generate a kind of psychic inner noise that makes you feel agitated and suggests you have somehow lost your center. It is not true, but your believing that you have lost it will make it true. Dreams and ambitions are not themselves a problem. It is what they have come to mean for you that is keeping you in dreamland. Stay as the space of awareness itself and don't say anything should or shouldn't be. then there will come a time when you simply abide in self, and these projections will no longer matter to you. Then you may write, but it will purely for the joy of expression. You may sing from a heart overflowing, whether or not anyone is listening, and you will love cool as much as you love hot. There is an underlying joy in self. Dreams will give away to peace unbroken, love inexhaustibly, and life ending. There is an underlying joy in the self. Dreams will give away to peace unbroken, love inexhaustibly, and life ending. Yeah, so interesting chapter. And again, I think he's really pointing to that what we find to be pleasurable and desirable and stimulating does not compare to discovering your truth, discovering the source within you. Now, that is not to say you have to sacrifice living this amazing life that you do to discover your source. It just means that when you discover your truth, it's your truth. This is, this is your inner sanctuary. This is love. It's a union between subject and object. There cannot be a greater truth. And when we discover that truth and expose our attention to that truth, I think that is true completeness, because everything else that is based in reality is coming and going. So all this stimulation that we're feeling that's giving us this sense of wellness, it comes and goes. It comes and goes. It's not permanent. It's all impermanent. All these worldly experiences are impermanent. So having all these goals, dreams, living this amazing life, going to all these parties, whatever it may be, yes, great, amazing. Live, don't suppress any urges, but they're always coming and going. They don't last forever. But when you discover the truth and the source within you, well, that is permanent. It is unchangeable. It is timeless. It is eternal. So you cannot compare, but I think when you discover that source, you can still do what you do, but there'll just be a deeper truth, and there'll be a more openness and awareness when you do what you do, and that's just a natural evolution of your energy. Archie says we live in life where everything is framed by our society. Finding our true nature is something beyond everything. I heard a quote: "Prayer is how we talk to God, and meditation is how God talks to us." Be the observer. Very well said, Ashwata man. Very powerful. Thank you for sharing that, brother. Um, your place in the world. The true perspective comes when you see that you are not an individual, I living life, but rather you are life itself being lived. So life is living. And I think Eckhart Tolle said that it is not my life. You don't own life. Life is happening through you. And when you kind of stay open to that, this is what living in the flow is. We hear that in meditation a lot: live in the flow. Nietzsche says, how you think it goes with emotional patterns, like I'm used to attract the wrong people in my life. Um, this is a interesting question, and I think I spoke about this the other day. I believe that life will give you people, places, things, circumstances, experiences to expose you to parts of yourself where you have not realized that you're extraordinary, right? So if you're manifesting the wrong people in your life, creating toxic energy, then they're just exposing you to a part of yourself you may need to heal. So life will always give you experiences that mirror your own transformation, that mirror your own healing, that mirror parts of yourself that you need to maybe liberate. So we repeat what we don't learn. And this is your intuition. This is your higher self from one perspective that keeps on manifesting these experiences for you because you haven't conquered this vibration. And that vibration is that, why am I attracting these people in my life, keeping my energy this low? Why does this thing happen to me? Because you haven't conquered it. If you conquered that vibration, then you wouldn't be manifesting these people in your life, but you're obviously vibrating at a certain frequency that allows these people to come into your life. Now, if you start changing your energy, you start changing your vibration, and you start increasing, you know, um, your self awareness, then before these people even enter your life, you'll just be like, nah, they're not worthy of my attention. They're not worthy of my energy. There'll be something there that you'll recognize with a greater sense of self awareness that these people are not worthy of your energy. So you don't have to feel robbed, or you don't have to feel the repercussions, is that a word? You don't have to feel the consequences of, you know, investing energy into someone that is not reciprocated in a way that you would like. So we repeat what we don't learn. So maybe there's valuable lessons here needs that you need to learn. Maybe I might be wrong, or it could be insecurities that are coming up. When we meet certain people that we need to be aware of, so we can transcend that energy. We can liberate that energy. There's so many different reasons, but the point is, I think that again it goes back to, if we don't learn certain lessons, or if we don't vibrationally conquer certain energies within ourselves, life will give you people, circumstances, experiences to help expose you to these energies within yourself. 'Cause once you truly start to liberate all these energies from a greater sense of awareness through observation, then I don't even think that these people will come into your life, because there's no vibrational match. And if they do, you'll feel it. You'll feel that your energies are just not in harmony, right? And this is what happens when we start to raise our vibration, and we still start to raise our awareness. Our networks change. People that we were friends with, we just don't have in common anymore. We don't have things in common, and people might start thinking differently of you, like, oh, Oscar's changed, he's blah blah blah, because they don't understand. You know, they don't understand that you're pioneering your own self evolution. So they'll, while the fools laugh, the wise man understands. So yeah, I hope that that answers your question, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit, and I can offer you some more insight if that didn't. Your place in the world. So I just read that. The self is the source of money, as it is the source of everything. You must never think that spirituality means you won't have money. But if you were to find yourself without money, you would find yourself with something greater than that. Some people have to discover true happiness through being broke, because they had been putting more value on material possessions that than on their own being. And this is powerful, because this reminds me of the story of Eckhart Tolle, when he was sitting on the park bench for years. He was homeless. He was absolutely homeless for years. So he's a man that's probably, written two of the most amazing books for self-development, known, The Power of Now and a New Earth. But at 3 4 years of his life, he was absolutely broke, and no one understood it. Everyone probably judged him, and he was just building this presence, but he stayed true to what was happening within him, and he kind of had to disconnect with the world and retreat and really work on himself. And at that point, he didn't know that he was going to write one of the best-selling books and become, this amazing teacher. Um, I don't think he went broke. I think he was just he just quit everything, and he just retreated. He didn't have money. He didn't have like the finances he did now back then. So I don't think he had much to lose anyway. He just kind of stopped working. He stopped caring, and he just kind of retreated to this present state where he just kind of let go of everything. And we may classify that as being a bum, because people don't understand that. And Mooji talks about this in this in this chapter, that there was a time when Mooji was sitting on park benches as well. He was just sitting in the park, and people would walk past him in London, Brixton, and say, "Oh, he used to be a teacher. He used to be an art teacher. What happened to that guy? Look at him now." And he just did not care. He was just discovering this truth within himself. But there was no money. There was just source. But look at these amazing teachers now. They stay true to their own self-development. They stay true to their own energy, and what they discovered was so powerful. Now that the money just manifests, like they don't even have to search it. It just comes through discovering something so powerful. And the irony here is, and I've said this before, and it's something great to resurface. You look back at history, people don't remember the richest people. Like really people remember rich people, right? And in the West, we idolize people that are successful, that have a lot of followers. And I'm not saying you guys, I'm saying in general. We idolize people that have all these, a lot of money, but some of the most powerful people, and influential people in the world had absolutely nothing. Like didn't have anything. He abandoned everything. But we can't forget him today. And he's probably one of the most influential teachers of our time and will be for the rest of life. Jesus, the story of Jesus, he didn't have much, but yet he's one of the most influential, powerful stories given. And a lot of people, Che Guevara, Gandhi, these people didn't have much, but yet they discovered such a truth. And today, they're in our hearts. These people pray to these people, and yeah, Napoleon was rich, but I don't think people sit there and pray and look to Napoleon for truth as they do to Buddha or Jesus. I don't think it can be compared, but I truly do believe that in the West we idolize people that are so connected to their egos and have all this materialism. But in the West, in the East, they idolize people that have no egos, that have no money, that abandon everything. There's just such a contrast in one part of the world. Someone that's given up everything, that meditates and that just finds his truth and shares it with people, is idolized, and in the West, someone that has all this money is idolized. It's such a massive contrast in cultural conditioning, or just our frame of reference and what we believe is true success. But the bottom line is, you can't take it with you when you're gone. You cannot take it with you when you're gone. So it doesn't matter how much money you have, or how big your house is, or how much this, you cannot take it with you. You cannot take nothing with you. So that is a meditation in itself. Meditate on that for a minute, and then truly realize what is valuable. And it's love is the ultimate force in the universe, and it is not even emotion, it's the union of self. It is the only answer. um okay, just moving along. Okay, then, this is a great story. The content fisherman. There was once a rich man from Mumbai who took a few days away from his hectic city life and went to a quiet village on the seaside to enjoy the sun, sand, and rest. As he walked along the beach, he saw a small fishing boat pulled up by the sand. A man was there, just leaning against the boat and smoking a tobacco pipe. The businessman was so intrigued and said, "Ah, hello, my good man. What are you doing here now?" "It's a beautiful day," he replied. "Yes, yes, very beautiful day indeed. But what are you doing sitting here? You're a fisherman, no?" "I am," the fisherman answered. "But you could be out at sea on this beautiful day catching fish, no?" He goes, "But I've already done that earlier." The businessman persisted. "Yes, but it's a beautiful day. You could go be out at sea again. There's potentially good fishing now, no?" "Yes, yes. And after I do that, then what?" The man from Mumbai said, "Well, then you could make a bit more money because you could sell more fish in the village than you do now." "Ah, and then what?" "Well, then you could buy a bigger boat." "And then?" "Well, then you could go further out to sea and catch more fish, bigger fish." "Ah, more bigger fish. Yes, yes. And then what?" "Well, then you would have made enough money that you could buy a bigger boat." And he's and well, sorry. Well, then you could have made. Well, then you would have made a large sum of money. And the fisherman said, "And after that, what?" "Well, then you could buy a motor for your boat." Because a motor, and then what? "Well, then you could go further out into the deep waters where you are bound to find even bigger fish. On the other hand, you could hire other fishermen to work for you." Because but then what? "Then you'll have a lot more money than you have now." "Ah, yes, but then what?" "Then you could have a big, nice house." Ah, nice house. The fisherman nodded thoughtfully and said, then what? And then you could sit back and enjoy life. And the fisherman smiled and said, but that's exactly what I am doing now. Everything has to do with contentment. The less you want, the less you will find anything to be wanting. The man from Mumbai could only imagine that contentment would mean getting all these things. But the simple man says, I am already content. I am not tired. I don't owe anybody any money. I can sit and enjoy my little smoke and I'm at peace. And this is a powerful story because, again, I think a lot of us, many of us, especially in the West, we're conditioned to chase money, materialistic objects, and just whatever it is, followers, and it's some sort of object or some sort of numbers or a metric system that validates this sense of self, right? But this sense of self, it's coming from a very unstable place, right? Because we are associating our sense of self with an impermanent reality that's always changing. Because the metric system where you're validating your sense of self is impermanent, because one day you get 1,000 followers and then you want 2,000, then you want 10,000, then you want 100,000. But you're going to get to a point where even some of the biggest Instagram influencers, they're not going to get any more followers. You're not going to get like, you're going to get to a point where there's no more people in the world to follow you. So that metric system that people define as a sense of self, it's temporary, and it's no different from money. You want money and more money and more money. You want a big house and a bigger house and a car and a faster car. It's just more and more and more, more and more and more. But it'll never ever bring you a sense of true fulfillment, because it's changing. It's bound by the law of impermanence. It's impermanent. But we're always chasing these things to feel a certain way, and that's living life backwards, I believe. And we know through all these esoteric teachings that ultimately, when we get all these followers and we get this big house and this relationship and this and that, it's a feeling that it gives us. Really, if you really think about it, you're chasing a feeling. And this is where Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches that you have to move into that space now, because that's now really working from a more creative level, because you now have adopted the feeling, and then life will change for you. It's quicker. It's a more efficient way to like already feel your success, feel your abundance, feel your truth, feel your gratitude as if you had all these things. Live as if your prayers were answered. Act like you are already there, right? And we know this, but we don't really adopt it because we are victims of cause and effect. Right? Our environment dictates the way we feel. So things have to change outside of us for us to feel a certain way. Oh, it's got to be our birthday. It's got to be the weekend. I've got to make this much money. I've got to do this much sales. I've got to do this, and then I can feel this way. And this is backwards. This is backwards. If you start to feel it first, life will change quicker. And this is how it works in your dream state. Is you change your dreams by feeling it. But maybe 3D reality takes a bit more time, but you're more powerful when you feel, when you create change from within yourself. And it's no different to when you look at a mirror. You can't shake a mirror and expect it to change. A mirror is just going to give you a reflection. But if you change the way you look at yourself, your image will start to change. Your perception will start to change. One day you hated yourself. You're insecure. You believe that you weren't good enough. You're too fat. You're too ugly. You're too skinny. But the next day you wake up and you love yourself. You're beautiful. You're a divine being. You're successful within yourself. You are potential. You are courage. You are greatness. And you fill your container full of this good energy. And this is where you start to really take control over your life, because you're not bound by these laws of the physical world. You're a spiritual being. You're bound by different laws. But when you don't realize your power and you limit your consciousness to physical reality, well, that's all you're going to do. You're going to live in 3D reality, and your level of power is suppressed to physical reality. And it takes this much time to manifest these experiences. But when you go into your energetic realm, you collapse the past and future, and everything is happening now in this quantum realm of reality. Yes, it may take a little bit of time, but that time will manifest a lot quicker when you create from within. You got to create from within. This is where change happens, right? So that was a great story. I really like that story. Like that fisherman was just content. Observing restlessness. This is a good one as well. So this is on page 153. Although it may seem that although it may seem that there is always something scratching about in the background life, like a Doberman straining at its chain, you can just look at these distractions, haste and restlessness, merely a play in your mind. If you were sitting together and you were to enter into a restless state, I would notice how jittery you seemed, and we might end up having a conversation like this. You might say, you know something, it's just itching is just itching to fly out the door and get going. Let me start again. You might say, you know, something is just itching to fly out the door and get going. You're aware of this, so don't identify with it. Be only the awareness, I would point out. You might reply, but it feels uncomfortable just to stay like this. There's something in you that's like this, but is not trying to stay like this. I would say it's just here. Pay attention to that. You might protest, but I can't do that. It's not to be done. I would clarify it's only to be recognized. Yeah, but it's very hard. That's only a thought. I would reply, don't believe it. I have nothing against activities or being productive, but what of your being productive, but what of your sense of self, of who is doing all these things? If you are inclined to being busy all the time, what I suggest is that you just stop for a moment. See what happens when you spontaneously but deliberately observe the actions and reactions that occur in your body and mind. What happens? You can do this right now. And we'll go into this little meditation. Actually, we'll do this. We'll do this next time. We'll do the meditation next time because we don't have time for that right now. But I'll do this. I'll do this, guys, with you next time. Moving along. So I'll start this meditation in our next session before we start chapter 8. Too many choices. This is a big one. So we've spoken about free will before, haven't we? Free will versus predeterminism. That's a big one. If someone is always busy deciding things, they certainly need to let go of that compulsion. But there are also people who simply cannot make a decision when making one is required. Often in spirituality, this tendency to procrastinate is excused with the idea that ultimately there is no such thing as a choice because everything is predestined. Both should be brought into the inquiry. Who is choosing or avoiding choices, and who is suffering from having chosen or not? Yes, Rosemary, next week, same time. And this session is also recorded for those who miss out. You just got to click the link in our About tab on the app, and the last live will be there. Often it is conditioning, habits, fear, and impatience that choose or prevent us from choosing. Once we understand this through direct experience, we come to see the sense of choice in a very different light. When consciousness wants to play as an autonomous human being, it manifests as a sense of choice and individuality. In the mode of individuality and personality, we love to experience. We love the sense of free will, but at the same time, we may either choose impulsively and later regret the choice, or feel a sense of confusion and uncertainty when faced with an apparent need to choose. The idea that ultimately there is no free will is not a good teaching, it is a good discovery. One cannot preach as a doctrine that everything is predestined and there is no choice. It is better to let people move into their sense of choice. For example, you have made the choice to read this book. But was it a choice or not? Yes, it was a choice. Was it absolutely your choice? No, it was a movement that started deep down inside of yourself and was directed to the universal power to present itself. And when it reached your conscious mind, you felt, I think I'll read that book. You may object. Are you saying that if I want to do something that there is a destined you may object. Are you saying that if I want to do something that is not destined to happen, that God is going to stop me from doing it? I don't think so. I can change my mind as often as I want. It's my choice. The sense of personal choice is fine. If not having a choice of if not having a sense of choice makes you feel claustrophobic, then just forget about any notion of destiny and enjoy the sense of having a choice. In that case, when making choices, it is better to feel your choices rather than overthink them. As we become more intuitive in approaching life, we come to see, it is although it is paradoxical, what we call free will and divine will go hand in hand. To make choices or to seemingly change our minds is also part of the play of consciousness. So don't worry about what you or others may think that the right approach is. If you feel a sense of choice, then move your choice and make good choices if you can. If you don't feel a sense of the need to choose, then enjoy this from a state of flow with life. Enjoy this enjoy this way of just flowing with life without favorites, preferences, biases, or judgments. If your mind is free of these energies, you will find that you're happy without anything that happens. If not that you don't care, it's not that you don't care, it's simply that you don't mind because you're in tune with a greater harmony. Some will mature inwardly until they come to see that actually it's neither about you making a choice nor about the supreme choosing for you. It's all simply happening spontaneously. Does anyone switch on their senses when they wake up in the morning? No, the senses are functioning on their own. There is absolutely nothing you have to do to enable perceiving that occurs through them. When we are established in and as the self, we come to see that everything in life is happening spontaneously like this. From a pure place of awareness where one sees and experiences that all is well, that we're being taken care of in everything we do, and that all is moving by itself. The concept of needing to do or decide things may feel irrelevant or excessive, whatever action arises in the action of the universe. Nevertheless, for as long as the body is here, the play of choice will express itself like a voice guiding you. No, don't turn here. We need to go there. But the sense of choice itself is felt superficial. It's a form of expression, but it is non consequential at a deeper level. As for me, I am not thinking about what I should do, and yet so many decisions are laid out for me to make. Something just clearly discerns whether the matter should be decided like this or like that. Decisions are being made, but not by the mind. Rather, the decisions are felt. Your life will be more of a felt existence, so that when you are not thinking your life, but living it by just being in your beingness, the natural state of the mind is to rest in a state of neutrality. Keep on enjoying and trusting life, and you will see where the current takes you. It's carrying you even more deeper into the realm from which you will not want to go back into the mind. You may find that you no longer have such a passion for doing many of the things you used to do, but you will still have a sense of, I would like to do rather that than this. But now you know the strong preferences and selectivity carry the odor of the ego's bad breath, and you will cut it out soon as it comes up. That was a powerful chapter because I've meditated on free will and predeterminism for a while, and we won't go too much into it today, but free will on many levels is an illusion. It's an illusion because, and it's a great illusion. It's an amazing illusion. It is very, 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 it's very convincing, right? Because we don't question it. We believe we have free will. Your free will was to listen to this live. But was there a deeper movement within you that created this energy that surfaced to your conscious awareness that then you made the decision to listen to this live, for example? And this is what predeterminism means, is that every choice you make can be linked to past decisions, past events, past experiences, and it's all kind of accumulated to then influence your decisions. Yeah. And in fact, the brain's already made the decision before the conscious awareness is even being aware of the decision. And they've done this for many, many, many tests, which we'll talk about in another live. But if you, and this highlights that when you, if this has some level of truth, and if you really inquire about free will and you truly start to understand that there are these deterministic programs that are being governed within you that you're only becoming consciously aware of because you are the awareness, then it's easier to it's easier to feel decisions and allow life to move through you, right? Because these like if you go into, you know, a supermarket and you pick out what you want to eat, you may think that's free will. But some may argue, well, you picked this chocolate based on past experiences that you enjoyed this chocolate, and that's why you are now leaning towards picking this chocolate, picking this juice, picking this, picking that. It's all from past experiences, conditioning, and everything that you have gone through that now is this deterministic program that are making these choices for you. Or it could be this movement that is happening within you, and maybe this is divine intervention, where it's intuition, where this energy is coming within you, and then you're becoming aware of it, and you're like, oh no, I have to do this, I have to. And this is why maybe you have synchronicity, because there are these impulses to go certain directions in life or make certain choices that then put you in this place where you learn something valuable for your growth and development. But ultimately, if you dig deep enough, I believe that you cannot help the experience, you can only try and understand why. I'll say that again. You cannot help the experience. You can only try and understand why. And that's a big one to meditate on, because when that starts to make sense, then life, well, it's happening. Whether you want to over intellectualize, over analyze, psychoanalyze, it's happening, right? But those leave more peaceful and in alignment with life when it's just felt. It's a felt existence. And we'll leave it there for today. Um, you know, we'll leave it there for today, and that pretty much finishes the chapter. Thank you guys for being here and allowing me to present chapter 7. I had a lot of fun, and we learned a lot of valuable insights, and just a great book. And it's you know, I do love Mooji's teachings, and I think it's just such a privilege to have someone with such a great awareness here, alive in our moment, that we can just tune into. And there is so much truth to discover. And, you know, this supreme realization that you are consciousness, you are the awareness, you are infinite, you know, this is the pointing, you know, that Mooji, it's always the one truth he delivers in all his satsangs. It's to point you to the source of awareness, that everything is unfolding and manifesting in your field of awareness. Now, if you truly adopt that, then suffering, anger, all emotions felt through fear just moves through you. You know, you don't have to be identified or so confined by these emotions anymore, because you realize there is a supreme reality, there's a supreme truth, that these are just visitors moving and going. This shall too pass. It's all impermanent, it's temporary, it comes and goes, you know. But it's, you confine yourself when you identify with such energies and equations of life. But as soon as you go and broaden your awareness to the infinite witnessing, then everything is unfolding in front of you. Everything is unfolding. So no matter if if you're feeling anxious and if you're suffering, listen to the narrative you're telling yourself. Just listen to the story you're telling yourself, and then ask yourself, who's observing that? And if it's being observed, which it is, then You cannot be what you observe, and just really meditate on that and try and adopt that insight to your everyday life, because this will really create more peacefulness. And this is the ultimate truth as spiritual beings. And this is the only truth, in my opinion, that will set us free. It will set us free from our karma, is to truly understand. And it's more than understanding, but to truly feel the awareness. Because when we're complete awareness, I don't think karma can affect us, because it just comes and goes. These are just energies moving, coming and going, and there's just this witnessing. And your attention starts to emerge with the infinite awareness, and subject and object become one, and you just kind of cultivate this state. And next time you're sitting there, just feel and just wait for the next decision. Don't think about it, just be. And then every moment can be a meditative practice. All right, guys. I will see everyone back on Tuesday. I'll publish some lives for the rest of the week. So if you resonated with this information, feel free to join our channel or join our group, where you can connect with some like-minded, beautiful souls that we all support each other's self-development and growth. This week, we'll be doing some breath work. We will be doing some beautiful meditation, and we'll be continuing our conversation on how to deal with negative people, part 2. So that was a very, very, very powerful conversation we had. So I'll be presenting that live again. And there's a lot of insights that everyone brought and brought forward from their own personal experiences dealing with narcissistic personalities. So that's going to be a great discussion. So again, if you miss out on any live and you like the subject, you can check out the videos. They're all recorded and on our link tree for around 24 hours. Stay blessed, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Ask you from StressFit. Until next time, bye-bye for now.